Grace Morgan stared at the phone in her hand, unable to process the words she just heard. The hospital was calling about her sister, Lily. There had been an accident. Ms. Morgan, are you still there? The voice on the other end was professional, calm, the kind of voice trained not to betray emotion when delivering potentially devastating news. Yes, Grace managed, her own voice sounding distant to her ears. I am sorry. Can you repeat that? There's been an accident involving my sister? Yes, Lily Morgan was brought in about an hour ago. She was involved in a car accident on Highway 16. She's currently stable but unconscious. We'd like you to come in as soon as possible. Grace's heart hammered in her chest. I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said, already searching for her car keys. The drive to Memorial Hospital was a blur. Grace couldn't remember stopping at lights or making turns. Somehow, her body operated on autopilot while her mind raced with terrible scenarios. Lily was the careful one, the planner, the one who insisted on regular car maintenance and never texted while driving. An accident seemed impossible. The hospital's emergency entrance loomed before her, its illuminated sign casting an eerie glow in the late evening darkness. Grace parked haphazardly and sprinted through the automatic doors, nearly colliding with a nurse pushing an empty wheelchair. I am looking for my sister, she blurted out to the receptionist. Lily Morgan. She was brought in after a car accident. The woman tapped at her keyboard, her expression neutral. Morgan. Yes, she's on the 3rd floor, room 318. The elevator is down that hallway. Grace mumbled thanks and hurried toward the elevator, jabbing repeatedly at the button as if that might make it arrive faster. The sterile hospital smell, a mix of disinfectant, medicine, and something undefinably clinical, filled her nostrils. When the doors finally opened, she squeezed in alongside a doctor studying a chart and a visitor holding a wilting bouquet of flowers. Room 318 was at the end of a long corridor. Grace's footsteps echoed on the linoleum as she approached, her chest tight with dread. The door was partially open. She took a deep breath and pushed it wider. The woman lying in the hospital bed was hooked up to several machines, an IV drip connected to her arm. Her face was turned away from the door, but Grace could see dark hair splayed across the pillow. A nurse was checking vitals, making notes on a tablet. Excuse me, Grace said softly. I am here for Lily Morgan. The nurse looked up and smiled politely. Are you family? I am her sister. They called me about the accident. Of course, the doctor will be in shortly to update you on her condition. She's stable, but still unconscious. The nurse gestured to a chair by the bed. You can sit with her. Sometimes familiar voices can help. Grace nodded and approached the bed as the nurse left. She sank into the chair and reached for her sister's hand, noticing the chipped nail polish, deep burgundy, almost black. Something about that seemed odd, but Grace was too distraught to dwell on it. Lily, it's me, she whispered, squeezing the limp hand. I am here. You're going to be okay. The figure in the bed didn't stir. Grace studied her sister's face, noting the bruises forming along one cheekbone and a small cut above her eyebrow that had been cleaned and bandaged. There was something different about her, but in the dimly lit room, with tubes and wires obscuring parts of her face, Grace assumed it was just the result of the trauma. She sat there for nearly 20 minutes, occasionally speaking soft words of encouragement, before a doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Ms. Morgan, I am Dr. Patel. I've been attending to your sister since she was brought in. Grace stood, her legs stiff from sitting tensely. How is she? When will she wake up? Dr. Patel's expression was unreadable. The head CT shows no severe trauma, which is good news. She has a concussion, 2 broken ribs, and various contusions, but nothing life-threatening. As for when she'll regain consciousness, it's hard to say exactly. Could be hours, could be days. Days? Grace's voice cracked. Sometimes the body needs time to heal. The fact that her vitals are stable is encouraging. He hesitated, glancing at the clipboard. There is one unusual thing I wanted to ask you about. Grace felt a chill. What is it? According to her ID and our records, Lily Morgan has type AB blood. But preliminary tests are showing her as type O. Is it possible there's an error in her medical records? Grace frowned. No, that's not right. Lily is definitely AB positive. I remember because we joked about it. I am O negative, universal donor, and she SAB positive, universal receiver. We learned about it in high school biology. Dr. Patel's forehead creased. I see. Well, there could be a mix-up in the lab. We'll run the test again. In the meantime, is there anyone else we should contact? Your parents, perhaps? Our parents died 5 years ago. It's just me and Lily. Grace's voice was hollow. Dr. Patel nodded sympathetically. I understand. We'll take good care of her. The call button is there if you need anything, and I'll be back to check on her in a few hours. After the doctor left, Grace returned to her vigil by the bed. The blood type discrepancy nagged at her, but she dismissed it as a lab error. Instead, she focused on her sister, willing her to open her eyes. As the night deepened, the hospital grew quieter. Grace dozed occasionally in the uncomfortable chair, jolting awake at every small sound. Around 3 a.m., she was startled by the buzzing of her phone. The screen showed a number she didn't recognize. Hello? She answered groggily. Is this Grace Morgan? The voice was male, authoritative. Yes. Who's this? This is Detective Reeves with the County Police Department. I am calling about your sister, Lily Morgan. Grace sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. Yes, I am at the hospital with her now. She was in a car accident. There was a pause, longer than seemed natural. Ms. Morgan, where exactly are you right now? Memorial Hospital, room 318. Why? What's going on? The detective's voice was carefully controlled when he spoke again. Ms. Morgan, I think there's been some confusion. I am calling because we found your sister's ID at a crime scene. We've been trying to locate her. Grace's blood ran cold. That's impossible. My sister is right here in front of me. Can you describe the person you believe to be your sister? Grace looked at the figure in the hospital bed, really looked for the first time since arriving. The woman's face was similar to Lily's. Same general shape, similar features. But now that she was paying attention, she noticed differences. The nose was slightly wider, the lips thinner, and when Grace gently brushed back the dark hair, she saw a small tattoo behind the ear. A tiny star that Lily definitely didn't have. Oh my God, Grace whispered, her free hand covering her mouth. This isn't my sister. Ms. Morgan, please stay where you are. I am sending officers to your location immediately. And whatever you do, don't let anyone know what I just told you. The call ended, and Grace stared at the stranger in the hospital bed. The woman she'd been holding hands with and talking to for hours, believing her to be Lily. And if this wasn't Lily, then where was her real sister? And whose hand had she been holding all this time? As if in response to her thoughts, the woman's fingers twitched in Grace's grasp. Her eyelids fluttered, and then, slowly, they opened, revealing dark brown eyes that stared directly into Grace's, filled with confusion and something else that made Grace's skin crawl. Recognition. You, not Lily, Grace whispered. The woman's lips parted, and in a voice barely audible, she rasped, and she's not safe. Grace froze as the stranger's words hung in the air between them. Before she could respond, the door to the hospital room swung open, and a nurse entered, her eyes widening at the sight of the now conscious patient. She's awake, the nurse exclaimed, hurrying to check the monitors. I'll get Dr. Patel right away. Grace stepped back, her mind racing. The woman in the bed was watching her with an intensity that sent chills down her spine. She wanted to demand answers, to ask about Lily, but Detective Reeves' warning echoed in her head. "Don't let anyone know what they just told you. Just step outside for a moment," Grace said shakily, backing toward the door. The woman's eyes never left her face. In the hallway, Grace leaned against the wall, trying to gather her thoughts. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, presumably Detective Reeves. "Officers 5 minutes out. Stay visible in public area." She made her way to the nurse's station where a tired-looking woman was typing at a computer. "Excuse me," Grace said, "the patient in 318 just woke up." "Yes, Dr. Patel has been notified," the nurse replied without looking up. "I was wondering, how was she identified when she was brought in? Did she have ID on her?" The nurse finally glanced up, her brow furrowing. "I am not sure. I came on shift after she was admitted. You can ask Dr. Patel when he arrives." As if summoned by his name, the doctor appeared from around the corner, moving with purpose toward room 318. Grace intercepted him. "Doctor, wait, there's something wrong. I don't think that's my sister." Dr. Patel paused, studying Grace's face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, now that they had a better look at her, I realized that's not Lily. There must have been some kind of mix-up." The doctor's expression shifted to concern. "Let's discuss this after I examine the patient. Why don't you wait here?" Grace nodded, watching as he disappeared into the room. Minutes crawled by. She checked her phone repeatedly, wondering where the police were. Finally, an elevator dinged at the end of the hall, and 2 uniformed officers stepped out, scanning the area until their eyes landed on her. "Ms. Morgan?" the taller one asked as they approached. "I am Officer Lewis. This is Officer Chen. Detective Reeves sent us." Grace fought to keep her voice steady. "The woman in that room isn't my sister, but she knows something. She said Lily isn't safe." The officers exchanged glances. Officer Chen spoke into her radio, updating someone on the situation. Officer Lewis addressed Grace. We're going to need you to tell us everything, from the beginning." Grace recounted the phone call from the hospital, her arrival, and the shocking revelation from Detective Reeves that Lily's ID had been found at a crime scene. As she finished, Dr. Patel emerged from room 318, his face grim. "The patient is refusing to speak," he informed them. "She asked for a lawyer." Officer Lewis stepped forward. "Doctor, we believe there may have been a case of mistaken identity. We need to speak with your patient." While the officers and doctor conversed, Grace's phone rang again. The same unknown number. "Detective Reeves? Ms. Morgan, they identified the woman in the hospital. Her name is Vanessa Winters. She has a record, mostly fraud and identity theft. Does that name mean anything to you or your sister?" Grace shook her head before realizing he couldn't see her. "No, they never heard of her. We're still processing the scene where we found your sister's ID. It's complicated. I need to ask you some sensitive questions. When did you last speak with Lily?" Grace tried to focus. 2 days ago. We had coffee together before she left for a business trip to Seattle. She works in pharmaceutical sales." "What company does she work for?" "Nexus Pharmaceuticals." "Why? What does this have to do with finding her?" There was a pause. "Ms. Morgan, Nexus Pharmaceuticals has been under federal investigation for months. We have reason to believe your sister may have gotten caught up in something dangerous." The word landed like a stone in Grace's stomach. "What kind of something?" "I can't say more over the phone. Stay with the officers. I am on my way to the hospital." The call ended, leaving Grace with more questions than answers. When she looked up, Officers Lewis and Chen were entering room 318. She followed, ignoring Dr. Patel's suggestion that she wait outside. Vanessa Winters was sitting up in bed, her expression defiant despite the medical equipment surrounding her. Up close and fully conscious, she looked even less like Lily than Grace had initially thought. "Ms. Winters," Officer Lewis began, We need to ask you some questions about Lily Morgan. Vanessa's eyes flickered to Grace. I want my lawyer. A woman is missing. Grace burst out, unable to contain herself. My sister. You said she's not safe. What do you know? Something like pity crossed Vanessa's face. You have no idea what you involved in, do you? Ms. Winters, Officer Chen interjected. If you have information about a missing person, withholding it could be considered obstruction of justice. Vanessa laughed bitterly, wincing at the pain it caused her ribs. Justice? There's no justice in this. Your sister, she said, looking directly at Grace, made a discovery that some very powerful people want to keep quiet. I was hired to monitor her. Hired by whom? Officer Lewis demanded. I don't know their names. It was all through encrypted channels. But I can tell you this. The car accident wasn't an accident. They tried to kill me because they thought I was her. Vanessa's face hardened. And now they know they failed. A cold dread settled over Grace. Where is Lily now? Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. The last time I saw her was yesterday morning. She was meeting someone at the Harbor View Hotel. A man who claimed to have information about the clinical trials Nexus has been conducting. Officer Chen was taking notes. This man's name? He called himself Martinez. That's all I know. And why were you posing as Lily? Officer Lewis pressed. Vanessa hesitated, then sighed. It was supposed to be simple identity theft. Get close to her, learn her habits, steal her credentials, drain her accounts. But then I found out what she was involved in. Her eyes met Grace's again. Your sister discovered that Nexus has been falsifying data on their new miracle drug. People have died in the trials. The real results are being covered up. Grace felt as though the floor was tilting beneath her. Lily had mentioned concerns about some of the company's practices, but Grace had assumed it was just typical corporate politics. She never imagined it could be something so sinister. If you telling the truth, Grace said slowly, why were you pretending to be her even after discovering this? Because once I was in, I couldn't get out. These people don't take kindly to loose ends. I figured as long as I was useful to them, as long as I could help track Lily's movements, I'd stay alive. Vanessa's voice dropped. And then someone must have realized I wasn't really working for them. The door opened, and a tall man in a rumpled suit entered. He flashed a badge. Detective Reeves. I see you. They all met our friend Ms. Winters. Reeves' presence seemed to change the atmosphere in the room. He carried an air of authority that commanded attention. He nodded to the officers before turning his gaze to Vanessa. We found some interesting items at the scene of your accident, Ms. Winters. A burner phone with some very cryptic messages. A key to a storage unit registered to a company that doesn't exist. Care to explain? Vanessa's expression closed off. Like I told them, I want my lawyer. Reeves smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course, but while we waiting for legal representation, maybe you'd like to know what else we found. He pulled out his phone and showed her something on the screen. Grace couldn't see what it was, but whatever Vanessa saw made the color drain from her face. That's not possible, she whispered. Oh, it's very possible, Reeves replied. And it changes everything, doesn't it? A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. A nurse appeared at the doorway, looking flustered. Doctor, there's an emergency in room 302. We need you right away. As Dr. Patel rushed out, Detective Reeves turned to officers Lewis and Chen. Secure this room. No one comes in or out without my authorization. To Grace, he said, Ms. Morgan, come with me. There's something you need to see. Grace followed him into the hallway, her head spinning with revelations. What did you show her? What did you find? Reeves guided her toward a quiet corner, away from the busy nurses' station. Surveillance footage from the Harbor View Hotel. Your sister was there yesterday, just as Winters said. But she wasn't alone. He showed Grace his phone screen. The grainy image showed Lily entering what looked like a conference room. Behind her was a man Grace recognized immediately, though she hadn't seen him in years. Thomas Morgan, their older half-brother, who had cut ties with the family a decade ago after a bitter dispute over their parents' will. Thomas? Grace gasped. What is he doing with Lily? They haven't spoken in years. Reeves studied her reaction carefully. According to our sources, Thomas Morgan now works as a security consultant for several pharmaceutical companies, including Nexus, S biggest competitor. The implications hit Grace like a physical blow. If Thomas was involved, this was bigger and more complicated than she had imagined. The black sheep of the family, Thomas had always been unpredictable, even manipulative. Had he somehow dragged Lily into corporate espionage? There's more, Reeves continued. We traced Lily's phone to a location about 30 miles north of the city. It's been stationary for the past 18 hours. Grace felt her heart constrict. Is she? Do you think she's? We don't know yet. A team is on the way there now. A nurse approached them, looking apologetic for interrupting. Excuse me, but there's a call for Ms. Morgan at the nurse's station. They say it's urgent. Grace and Reeves exchanged looks. Who is it? Grace asked. The caller didn't give a name. Just said you want to take it. At the nurse's station. Grace picked up the phone with trembling hands. Hello, Gracie? The voice was faint, frightened, but unmistakable. Lily? Grace clutched the receiver tighter. Where are you? Are you okay? Listen carefully, Lily whispered. Don't trust Reeves. He's not. The line went dead. When Grace turned around, Detective Reeves was watching her, his expression unreadable. Behind him, the elevator doors opened, and a man in a doctor's coat stepped out. As he turned toward them, Grace caught a glimpse of his face and felt her blood turn to ice. It was Thomas, and he was heading straight for Vanessa Winter's room. That's Thomas, Grace hissed, grabbing Detective Reeves' arm and pointing down the hallway. My half-brother. He's here. Reeves' hand immediately moved to his holster. Stay behind me, he ordered, his voice low and urgent. He spoke into his radio, calling for backup as he moved toward Thomas, who had nearly reached room 318. Thomas spotted them and froze momentarily before his face settled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Grace, he called out, as if they were meeting at a family reunion rather than in a hospital corridor under increasingly suspicious circumstances. What a surprise. Step away from that door, sir, Reeves commanded, positioning himself between Thomas and Vanessa's room. Officers Lewis and Chen emerged, alerted by the commotion. Thomas raised his hand slowly, the gesture almost mocking. There seems to be a misunderstanding. I am here to visit a patient, a colleague who was in an accident. He gestured to the doctor's coat he wore. I am a pharmaceutical consultant. I have business here. He's lying, Grace said, her voice shaking with a mixture of fear and anger. He hasn't spoken to me or Lily in nearly 10 years. There's no way this is a coincidence. Thomas's eyes hardened, the familial resemblance to Grace suddenly more apparent in the set of his jaw. Always jumping to conclusions, weren't you, Gracie? Maybe I am here because Lily contacted me. Did that possibility cross your mind? Reeves kept his hand near his weapon. Sir, I am going to need some identification. Thomas reached slowly into his pocket and produced a badge that looked official. Thomas Morgan, Security Director, Helios Pharmaceuticals. I am here on legitimate business. Reeves examined the badge, his expression revealing nothing. Mr. Morgan, I'd like you to come with us to answer some questions about your sister Lily. Half-sister, Thomas corrected automatically, a flicker of the old family tension surfacing. And I haven't seen Lily in years. What's this about? She's missing, Grace interjected, watching Thomas's face carefully for any reaction. And the woman in that room was impersonating her. Somehow I think you know more than you, saying. A shadow passed over Thomas's features, so quickly Grace almost missed it. Missing? What do you mean? Before anyone could respond, the hospital PA system crackled to life. Code Blue, ICU. Code Blue, ICU. All available medical personnel report immediately. The distraction was brief, but it was enough. Thomas suddenly lunged forward, shoving Reeves aside with surprising strength. Officer Chen moved to intercept him, but Thomas was faster, slamming through the door to room 318. Grace and the officers followed immediately, bursting into the room only seconds behind him. What they found stopped them all in their tracks. The room was empty. The bed where Vanessa Winters had been lying was vacant, IV lines dangling uselessly, monitors silent. The window remained closed and intact, but Vanessa had somehow vanished. Thomas stood in the center of the room, looking as shocked as the rest of them. "Where is she?" he demanded. Reeves drew his weapon. "Hands where I can see them, now." As officers Lewis and Chen secured Thomas, Reeves called for a hospital lockdown. Grace stood in the doorway, trying to process what was happening. How could Vanessa have disappeared? And what did Thomas's presence mean for Lily? "I need to talk to you," Thomas said to Grace, as the officers handcuffed him. "Alone. It's about Lily. They lost the right to make demands," Grace replied coldly. "Whatever you know about my sister, you can tell all of us." Thomas's expression grew desperate. "You don't understand. Lily is in serious danger, and now that Vanessa is gone." "How do you know her name?" Reeves interrupted, his tone sharp. "We never mentioned Vanessa Winters in your presence." Thomas fell silent, realizing his mistake. "Take him to the security office," Reeves ordered. "I want 2 officers guarding him at all times." As Lewis and Chen led Thomas away, Reeves turned to Grace. "Stay close to me. If your brother knows Vanessa Winters, he's involved in this deeper than I initially thought." "Half-brother," Grace corrected automatically, then shook her head at the absurdity of focusing on that detail now. As they followed the officers and Thomas down the hallway, Grace's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Locker 224, basement level. Combination 11245. Hurry, L." Grace's heart leapt. "It's from Lily," she whispered to Reeves, showing him the message. Reeves studied it, frowning. "Could be a trap, or it could be our only lead," Grace countered. "The combination 11245. It's our parents' death anniversary and the number of years they were married. Only Lily would know to use that." Reeves hesitated, then nodded. "We'll check it out, but you stay behind me the entire time." They took the service elevator to the basement level, a dimly lit area housing maintenance equipment, laundry facilities, and staff lockers. The air was cooler here, with the low hum of machinery providing a constant background noise. They moved cautiously through the maze of corridors until they reached a room marked Staff Lockers. Locker 224 was in the back corner. Reeves positioned himself between Grace and the locker, gun drawn, as she carefully input the combination. The lock clicked open. Inside was a single manila envelope with Grace written on it in Lily's distinctive handwriting. Grace's hands trembled as she opened it. The envelope contained several documents, what appeared to be clinical trial reports, emails, and most strikingly, a photograph of Lily standing with Thomas and several other people in lab coats. On the back was written, "Project Phoenix Team, 2022. "This doesn't make sense," Grace murmured. "Lily only started working at Nexus last year, and she said she hadn't seen Thomas since our parents' funeral." Reeves examined the photograph. "One of them has been lying to you." Also in the envelope was a handwritten note from Lily. "Grace, if you rereading this, then my suspicions were correct. I can't explain everything now, but what you need to know is that Project Phoenix is not what it appears. The drug they rushing to market causes severe side effects that they covering up. Thomas approached me 3 years ago, not as family, but as a recruiter. They've been working undercover, gathering evidence. But someone found out. Trust no one. Especially not anyone who claims to be with the FBI or DEA. Some of them are on Nexus's payroll. The real evidence is at our parents' cabin. Remember where we used to hide our diaries? I am sorry for keeping you in the dark. I thought I was protecting you. Love, Lily. Grace looked up at Reeves, suddenly wary. How do I know I can trust you? You haven't even shown me your badge. Reeves maintained his calm demeanor. I understand your suspicion. He slowly reached into his jacket and produced his credentials. Detective James Reeves, County Police Department, Major Crimes Unit. Grace examined the badge carefully, though she wasn't sure what she was looking for. It looked official enough. Lily's note mentioned the FBI and DEA being compromised. Local police. Which might be exactly why your sister felt she could trust us, Reeves pointed out. Look, I don't know what your sister and brother are involved in, but if it's as big as these documents suggest, we need to move carefully. Grace studied the clinical trial reports. They were filled with medical terminology she didn't understand, but even she could comprehend the sections highlighting severe adverse reactions, including several deaths, all marked confidential, not for distribution. These people died during the trials, she whispered, horror dawning as she flipped through pages. And Nexus covered it up. If that's true, we're talking about serious criminal liability, Reeves said. Billions in potential lawsuits, not to mention federal charges. He took a photo of each document with his phone. We need to get these somewhere safe and figure out our next move. Grace clutched the letter. The cabin. Lily said the real evidence is at our parents' cabin. Where is this cabin? About 2 hours north, in the mountains. It's isolated. No neighbors for miles. Reeves considered this information. It could be dangerous. If these pharmaceutical executives are willing to falsify data and cover up deaths, they wouldn't hesitate to. A noise from the doorway cut him off. They both turned to see a hospital security guard standing there, hand hovering near his holster. This area is restricted, the guard said flatly. I am going to need you both to come with me. Reeves showed his badge. Police business. We're in the middle of an investigation. The guard's eyes narrowed, his gaze shifting between Reeves, Grace, and the documents in her hand. I still need you to come with me. Hospital protocol during a lockdown. Something about his demeanor set off alarm bells in Grace's mind. His uniform fit too perfectly. His shoes were expensive leather rather than the practical footwear most security personnel wore, and his accent had a slight European inflection. Of course, Reeves replied smoothly. We were just finishing up. He subtly positioned himself between Grace and the guard as they moved toward the door. As they approached, Grace noticed a small tattoo on the guard's wrist, partially visible beneath his sleeve, a stylized phoenix. Detective, she whispered urgently, the tattoo. The guard moved with startling speed, drawing his weapon and aiming it directly at Reeves. The documents, hand them over. Reeves didn't hesitate. He shoved Grace backward and reached for his own weapon, but the guard was faster. The sound of the gunshot was deafening in the confined space. Reeves staggered backward, clutching his shoulder as blood seeped between his fingers. Despite his injury, he managed to pull his gun and fire back. The guard ducked, returning fire as Grace scrambled behind a row of lockers. Run! Reeves shouted to her, firing again to provide cover. Grace hesitated only for a second before clutching the documents to her chest and sprinting toward the back of the room, where she remembered seeing another door. Behind her, more shots rang out, followed by the sound of a body hitting the floor. She didn't look back to see who had fallen. The second door led to a narrow utility corridor. Grace ran blindly, turning corners at random, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. The basement was a labyrinth of service tunnels, storage rooms, and mechanical spaces. She had no idea where she was going, only that she needed to get away. After what felt like an eternity, she found herself in a large laundry room. Giant industrial washers and dryers lined the walls, and carts of clean linens were arranged in rows. At the far end, she spotted an emergency exit with a sign indicating it led to the parking lot. Just as she started toward it, the door she had entered through burst open. The security guard appeared, blood streaming from a graze on his cheek, his eyes cold with determination. "There's nowhere to go, Ms. Morgan," he called out, his accent more pronounced now. "Give me the documents, and you can walk away from this." Grace ducked behind a laundry cart, mind racing. "Where's Detective Reeves? What did you do to him? The detective will live, if help reaches him in time. You, however, are quickly running out of options." Grace scanned the room desperately for a weapon or escape route. The emergency exit was still 20 feet away, and the guard would surely catch her before she reached it. Her eyes landed on a fire alarm on the wall nearby. "Why are you doing this?" she called out, trying to keep him talking as she edged closer to the alarm. "What's in these documents that's worth killing for?" The guard moved cautiously between the rows of laundry carts, searching for her. "I am just following orders. Nothing personal." "Was it nothing personal when those people died in the trials?" Grace challenged, her voice shaking with anger. "Was it nothing personal when you tried to kill Vanessa thinking she was my sister?" "Collateral damage happens in any business," he replied coldly. "Now, I want to ask again. The documents." Grace lunged for the fire alarm and pulled it. Immediately, a deafening klaxon filled the air, and sprinklers activated throughout the room. In the ensuing chaos, she made a dash for the emergency exit, clutching the precious documents inside her jacket to keep them dry. She heard a shout behind her, followed by another gunshot that went wide, hitting a dryer instead. The emergency door opened to the hospital's rear parking lot, now bathed in early morning light. Staff were beginning to congregate at designated meeting points, confused by the fire alarm. Grace ran toward them, seeking safety in numbers. She spotted an ambulance idling nearby, paramedics standing by its open doors. Without hesitation, she rushed toward them. "Please, I need help," she gasped. "Someone's trying to kill me. A detective's been shot in the basement." The paramedics looked at her with concern, taking in her soaked clothes and panicked expression. One spoke into her radio, reporting the situation, while the other helped Grace into the back of the ambulance. "You're safe now," he assured her. "What's your name?" Grace hesitated, remembering Lily's warning to trust no one. "Eve," she lied. "Eve Wilson." As the paramedic began checking her for injuries, Grace glanced out the ambulance window and felt her blood freeze. Walking calmly through the crowd, scanning faces methodically, was the security guard. His uniform was now covered by a doctor's white coat, the blood on his face wiped clean. No one would look twice at him. Their eyes met through the window. A small smile curved his lips as he changed direction, heading straight for the ambulance. Grace turned to the paramedic, desperation in her voice. "We need to leave. Now, please." "We can't leave yet," he replied, confused. We're waiting for." The back door of the ambulance opened. Grace recoiled, expecting to see the guard, but instead found herself staring into a familiar face, one she had seen just hours before in a hospital bed. Vanessa Winters, now dressed in hospital scrubs, her dark hair tucked under a cap. "Move over," she ordered, climbing in and slamming the door shut. To the startled paramedic, she flashed what looked like a badge. "Federal agent, this woman is under my protection. We need to go now." The paramedic hesitated only briefly before calling to his partner, "Let's roll." As the ambulance pulled away, Grace caught a final glimpse of the fake security guard standing in the parking lot, watching them leave, his expression murderous. "Are you really a federal agent?" Grace asked when they were safely in motion, sirens blaring. Vanessa gave her a tired smile. No, but he doesn't know that. She winced, pressing a hand to her injured ribs. You have the documents? From the locker? Grace nodded slowly, still unsure whether to trust this woman who had been impersonating her sister. Good, Vanessa said, because we're going to need them to save Lily. And to stop Project Phoenix before more people die. How do you know about the locker? Grace demanded. And where's my sister? Vanessa's expression grew serious. Because Lily told me where it was, right before she disappeared. And if I am right about who has her, we don't have much time. The ambulance sped through the morning traffic, carrying Grace further from the hospital but deeper into a conspiracy that had already claimed lives and now threatened her sister, S. And somewhere in this web of lies and corporate greed was Thomas, the half-brother she had once looked up to, now a stranger with unknown allegiances. Grace clutched the documents tighter. These papers held the key to finding Lily, but they also made her a target. As the city streets blurred outside the ambulance windows, one question burned in her mind. Who could she really trust? The ambulance wove through morning traffic, sirens blaring. Inside, Grace clutched the documents to her chest, studying Vanessa Winters with wary eyes. The woman who had been impersonating her sister now sat across from her, breathing heavily as she checked the windows. The paramedic up front, Grace whispered. Is he involved in this too? Vanessa shook her head. No, he thinks I am federal law enforcement. But we need to get out of this ambulance soon. It won't take them long to figure out where we went. Who's them? And why should I trust you? Grace demanded. You were pretending to be my sister. Vanessa winced as she shifted position, her injuries from the car crash clearly paining her. I told you. I was hired to steal Lily's identity. But things changed when I discovered what she was investigating. Project Phoenix, Grace said. Surprise flickered across Vanessa's face. You know about it? Grace nodded toward the documents. Lily left these for me. But the note doesn't explain everything. How did you find Lily in the first place? How did you know enough about her to impersonate her? Vanessa sighed. I am good at what I do. I've been taking on other identities for years. Usually rich women who wouldn't miss the money. I observed Lily for weeks, her habits, mannerisms, schedule. I even broke into her apartment to study her personal items. She had the decency to look ashamed. When I was ready, I approached her at a conference pretending to be a new sales representative from another region. The paramedic in the front called back. We're heading to County General. Should be there in 10 minutes. Change of plans, Vanessa replied with authority. Drop us at the corner of Westlake and Pine. Police will meet us there. Grace shot her a questioning look, but Vanessa silenced her with a slight shake of her head. That's not protocol, the paramedic responded hesitantly. Vanessa flashed her fake badge again. New protocol, national security. The man looked uncertain but eventually nodded. Westlake and Pine it is. When he turned his attention back to driving, Vanessa leaned closer to Grace. We need to disappear. These people have connections everywhere. Hospitals, police departments, government agencies. No one can be trusted. Not even Detective Reeves? Grace asked, remembering the man who had taken a bullet trying to protect her. Especially not Reeves, Vanessa replied, her voice hard. Did you actually see his badge? Check his credentials? Grace nodded slowly. He showed me his badge. It looked real. And I am sure the badge that security guard showed looked real too. These people have resources, Grace. They can create any identity they need. A chill ran down Grace's spine. Could Reeves have been part of the conspiracy all along? But he'd been shot protecting her. Unless, the shooting in the basement, Grace said slowly. It could have been staged to earn my trust. Vanessa gave her an approving look. Now you, rethinking like someone who wants to stay alive. The ambulance slowed as they approached the intersection of Westlake and Pine. The morning bustle of the city surrounded them, commuters hurrying to work, coffee shops with lines spilling onto sidewalks. The normal rhythm of urban life that now seems surreal against the backdrop of conspiracy and danger. "Ready?" Vanessa asked as the vehicle came to a stop. Grace nodded, though she felt anything but ready. They exited quickly, Vanessa thanking the paramedics while maintaining her authoritative facade. As soon as the ambulance pulled away, she grabbed Grace's arm and guided her into the crowd. "Keep your head down. There are cameras everywhere." They moved swiftly through the streets, taking random turns, doubling back occasionally to ensure they weren't being followed. Despite her injuries, Vanessa maintained a brisk pace that left Grace struggling to keep up. After 20 minutes of this careful evasion, they ducked into a small, dingy motel on the outskirts of downtown. The lobby was empty except for a disinterested clerk who barely looked up from his phone when Vanessa paid cash for a room. No ID requested, no questions asked. Once inside the sparse room with its faded wallpaper and sagging beds, Grace finally allowed herself to breathe. She sank onto the edge of one bed, the documents still clutched in her hands. "Let me see those," Vanessa said, extending her hand. Grace pulled back. "Not until you tell me everything. What happened to my sister?" Vanessa's expression softened slightly. She lowered herself gingerly onto the opposite bed. "3 days ago, Lily contacted me. I was surprised. I thought my cover was solid. But somehow she figured out I wasn't who I claimed to be. She confronted me in private, showed me some of the documents you're holding now. Why didn't she go to the police? Because by that point, she didn't know who she could trust. Project Phoenix has tentacles everywhere." Vanessa paused, wincing as she readjusted her position. "Lily made me an offer. Help her expose Nexus's wrongdoing, and she wouldn't turn me in for identity theft." "I agreed. So you were working together," Grace said, trying to reconcile this with everything else she learned. Vanessa nodded. "We devised a plan. Lily would meet with a whistleblower, someone inside Nexus who wanted to come forward with additional evidence. I would continue posing as her at work, maintaining the appearance that nothing was wrong while she gathered the final pieces she needed." The meeting at Harbor View Hotel, Grace realized. With Thomas. Surprise flashed across Vanessa's face. "You know about that? Detective Reeves, or whoever he is, showed me surveillance footage. Lily was meeting with Thomas, my half-brother." Vanessa frowned. She never mentioned his name to me. She just said she was meeting someone who had been collecting evidence for years. Someone on the inside who had finally decided to come forward. Grace's mind reeled. Could Thomas have been a whistleblower all along? But that didn't explain his appearance at the hospital, clearly looking for Vanessa. Nothing made sense. "What happened after the meeting?" Grace asked. "I don't know. Lily was supposed to contact me afterward, but she never did. The next day, I was driving her car when someone ran me off the road." Vanessa's hand went to her ribs. "I woke up in the hospital with everyone thinking I was Lily Morgan." Grace spread the documents on the bed between them. Clinical trial reports, internal emails, and a flash drive that had been hidden in the envelope's lining. "So what exactly is Project Phoenix?" Vanessa leaned forward. "From what Lily told me, it's Nexus's miracle drug, a compound that supposedly treats multiple neurodegenerative diseases simultaneously. It would be worth billions if approved. The problem is, it doesn't work as advertised. Worse, it causes severe side effects in a significant percentage of patients." Grace picked up one of the clinical reports. According to this, 17 patients died during trials. And Nexus covered it up, Vanessa confirmed. They falsified data, pressured researchers to alter reports, even paid off families of victims. But a few people inside the company couldn't live with it. "They started collecting evidence, including my sister," Grace murmured, "and possibly Thomas. The question is, who else knows about this evidence? And who has Lily now?" Before Grace could respond, her phone buzzed. An unknown number, just like the text that had directed her to the locker. She showed it to Vanessa, who nodded cautiously. Put it on speaker, Vanessa instructed. Grace answered. Hello, Grace? The voice was familiar. Detective Reeves, his tone strained with pain. Thank God. Are you safe? Grace exchanged looks with Vanessa before responding carefully. I am okay. What about you? Bullet went through my shoulder. I live. Listen. The hospital's crawling with people looking for you. That security guard wasn't alone. How'd I know I can trust you? Grace demanded, voicing the doubts Vanessa had planted. There was a pause on the line. You can't know for certain, Reeves admitted. But I am not the one who shot at you in that basement. Check the wound on my left shoulder if you need proof. Vanessa mouthed silently. Ask him something specific. Tell me something only the real Detective Reeves would know, Grace said. Something from the basement. The combination to the locker, he replied without hesitation. 11245. You said it was your parents' death anniversary and the years they were married. And the note inside was from Lily, telling you to check your parents' cabin. Something about where you used to hide diaries. Grace felt a surge of relief, which she quickly suppressed. He could have read the note after she fled. Where are you now? She asked instead. County General Hospital. They repatching me up. I told them I was checking out a suspicious person when I got jumped. Didn't he mention you or the documents? Grace, you need to be careful. The man who shot me. I ran his description through our database. He's suspected of being a professional fixer for pharmaceutical companies involved in litigation. A cleaner who makes problems disappear. Vanessa was shaking her head emphatically, drawing her finger across her throat. I have to go, Grace said abruptly. Wait, Reeves said urgently. Your brother, Thomas. He escaped during the chaos at the hospital. But before he did, he said something I think you should hear. He said, tell Grace that Lily's at the cabin, but it's not what she thinks. Does that mean anything to you? Grace's heart skipped a beat. The cabin, just as Lily's note had indicated. I have to go, she repeated, and ended the call before Reeves could say more. We can trust him, Vanessa insisted. This could be a trap. But what if it's not? Grace countered. What if Lily really is at the cabin? Her note mentioned it too. Vanessa frowned, considering. It could still be a trap. They could have forced that information from her. Grace stood up, a new determination filling her. I have to check. It's the only lead we have. And if it is a trap, then we'll be walking right into it, Grace acknowledged. But if there's even a chance Lily's there, I have to try. Besides, her note mentioned hiding something at the cabin. Evidence that could expose Project Phoenix. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment before nodding slowly. All right, but we don't go in blind. We scout the place first. Look for signs of surveillance or security. It's 2 hours north, Grace said. And we don't have a car. A slight smile curled Vanessa's lips. Stealing cars is considerably easier than stealing identities. Give me 15 minutes. True to her word, within 20 minutes they were heading north in an older model sedan that Vanessa had hot-wired from a long-term parking lot. Grace sat in the passenger seat, the stolen documents secure in a backpack they purchased from a convenience store, along with some basic supplies. As they left the city behind, Grace studied Vanessa's profile. This woman had deceived her sister, stolen her identity, and yet now seemed determined to help save her. People were rarely as simple as they first appeared. Why are you doing this? Grace asked finally. You could walk away, disappear. Vanessa kept her eyes on the road. I spent my life taking things from people. Identities, money, security. For once, I'd like to give something back. She paused. Besides, I like your sister. She's smart, principled. The world needs more people like her. They drove in silence for a while, the urban landscape gradually giving way to suburbs and then to rolling countryside. Grace's mind was a tangle of questions and fears. Who could she really trust? Vanessa, the identity thief who had been impersonating Lily. Reeves, the detective who might not be a detective at all. Thomas, the estranged half-brother who had suddenly reappeared after a decade. Each had their own agenda, their own version of the truth. The only person Grace knew she could trust was Lily herself. And Lily was missing. Vanessa pulled over just before the turnoff, concealing the car behind a stand of thick bushes. They would have to walk the remaining mile, but it would allow them to approach with caution. After about 15 minutes of careful progress, the cabin came into view. A rustic A-frame structure nestled among tall pines, its wooden exterior weathered to a soft gray. From their vantage point in the trees, they could see the front as they gathered their few belongings. Grace's phone buzzed again. Another text from an unknown number. "I know you, heading to the cabin. Do not trust Vanessa. She's not who you think she is. T. Thomas." Grace showed the message to Vanessa, whose expression hardened. As they approached the winding mountain roads that would lead to the cabin, Vanessa spoke up. "Tell me about this place. What should we expect?" "It's isolated," Grace explained. "Our parents bought it when we were kids. After they died, Lily and I inherited it jointly, but neither of us visits much anymore. Too many memories. It's simple. 2 bedrooms, a main living area with a stone fireplace, small kitchen. The closest neighbor is 5 miles away. And this hiding place Lily mentioned? Where you kept diaries." Grace smiled faintly at the memory. "There's a loose floorboard in the main bedroom closet. Lily and I used to hide things there that we didn't want our parents to find. Diary entries, notes from boys, candy we weren't supposed to have." The road narrowed and began to climb, tall pines closing in on either side. The afternoon sun filtered through the branches, casting dappled shadows across the car. Anyone watching would have seen 2 women on what appeared to be a pleasant drive to the mountains. They wouldn't have seen the documents detailing corporate malfeasance in the backpack, or noticed how Vanessa checked the rearview mirror every few minutes for signs of pursuit. "We should ditch the car before we reach the cabin," Vanessa said as they turned onto an even narrower road. "If someone is waiting for us, I don't want to announce our arrival." Grace nodded, tension building in her chest as family. "He's trying to split us up," Vanessa said dismissively. Classic manipulation tactic. Grace wasn't so sure. There was too much she didn't know about Vanessa, too much that didn't add up. But for now, they needed each other. She pocketed her phone without responding and shouldered the backpack. They set off down the private road, staying within the tree line rather than walking in the open. The familiar scent of pine and earth brought back memories of childhood summers spent at the cabin. Lily teaching her to swim in the nearby lake, their father building campfires for mores, their mother reading stories on the porch swing. Simple times, before secrets and conspiracies had torn their family apart. Porch and the gravel driveway. And parked in that driveway was a black SUV with tinted windows. Someone was already there. Vanessa pulled Grace down into a crouch. "Stay here," she whispered. "I am going to circle around back. See if I can get a look inside without being spotted." "I am coming with you," Grace insisted. "I know every inch of this property." Vanessa hesitated, then nodded. Together, they crept through the underbrush, making a wide arc around the cabin. As they neared the back, they could see that the rear door was slightly ajar, not a good sign. They approached cautiously, using the trees for cover. When they were within 20 feet of the back entrance, they heard voices from inside, a man and a woman, their tones urgent but too muffled to make out the words. Vanessa gestured for Grace to stay put while she edged closer to one of the windows. She peered inside briefly before ducking back down and returning to Grace's side. "It's your sister," she whispered. "She's alive." Grace's heart leapt. "Is she hurt? Who's with her?" "She looks unharmed. She's sitting at the kitchen table with a man, tall, dark hair, expensive suit." They seemed to be having an intense discussion. "Thomas?" Grace guessed. "I couldn't see his face clearly, but the build matches what I saw at the hospital. Grace felt a surge of anger and relief simultaneously. If Thomas had brought Lily here, was he her kidnapper or her protector? And how did this fit with everything else they learned? We need to get closer, Grace decided. Hear what they saying. They moved silently toward the cabin, using the overgrown shrubs along the back wall for cover. As they drew nearer, the voices became clearer. Can just release everything? Thomas was saying. You know what they do. I don't care anymore, Lily replied, her voice tired but determined. 17 people died, Thomas. 17. And more will die if this drug gets approved. I understand that, but there are other considerations. Like your career, your investment? What exactly are you protecting, Thomas? Because it sure as hell isn't me. There was a pause. Then Thomas spoke again, his voice lower. They always protected you, Lily. Ever since we were kids. By lying to me? By using me to gather evidence while you played both sides? That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Lily interrupted, her voice rising. Those families who lost loved ones and don't even know why. The patients who are going to take this drug thinking it will help them, not knowing it might kill them instead. Grace had heard enough. Despite Vanessa's attempt to hold her back, she stood and approached the back door, pushing it open fully. Lily, she called out. There was a moment of shocked silence, then a flurry of movement. Lily appeared in the doorway between the kitchen and the small back entryway, her face a mask of disbelief and joy. Grace? She gasped. How did you? She didn't finish the sentence. From behind Grace, there came the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. Nobody moved, Vanessa said coldly, all pretense of alliance gone from her voice. She had produced a pistol from somewhere on her person and was now aiming it directly at Lily. Thomas, get out here where I can see you. Thomas appeared beside Lily, his hands raised. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Vanessa. Ms. Winters, I was wondering when you show up. Grace turned to Vanessa in confusion, only to find the gun now pointed at her. Vanessa, what are you doing? The woman's expression had changed completely. Gone was the vulnerability, the apparent desire to help. In its place was a cold efficiency that sent chills down Grace's spine. My job, Vanessa replied simply. Sorry about the deception, Grace, but I needed you to lead me to the evidence. Now, all of you inside. And Lily, if they hidden those clinical trial records somewhere clever, now would be the time to hand them over. Unless you want your sister to experience firsthand just how deadly Project Phoenix can be. The cabin's main room fell silent as Vanessa herded them inside, her gun unwavering. Outside, the afternoon light was beginning to fade, casting long shadows through the windows. Grace stood beside Lily, instinctively protective despite the weapon pointed at them. Thomas remained a few steps away, his expression calculating. You never were working with Lily, were you? Grace asked Vanessa, piecing together the deception. Vanessa smiled thinly. Not exactly. I was hired to find her and the evidence she collected. The identity theft was just a means to an end. Get close to her, gain her trust. She glanced at Lily. I almost had it all until your sister realized something was off and disappeared. Who hired you? Thomas demanded. Nexus Executive Board? Or was it someone higher up? Does it matter? Vanessa countered. What matters is that Project Phoenix is worth billions. Revolutionary treatment for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and ALS in one drug. The pharmaceutical industry's holy grail. A few casualties in clinical trials aren't going to stop that train. 17 deaths, Lily said quietly. And those are just the ones we know about. Grace finally had a moment to really look at her sister. Lily appeared exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes, but otherwise unharmed. There was a newfound hardness to her expression that hadn't been there before. The look of someone who had seen too much. The evidence, Lily, Vanessa insisted, gesturing with the gun. Where is it? Thomas took a step forward. You, making a mistake, Winters. You have no idea what you, involved in. Stay back, Vanessa warned. I know exactly what I am involved in. A substantial payday. Now, the evidence. Last chance before things get messy. Grace caught Lily's eye. A silent communication passing between them. The kind only siblings who grew up together could share. Lily gave an almost imperceptible nod toward the main bedroom. It's in the bedroom, Lily said reluctantly. Under the floorboards in the closet. Vanessa smiled. See? Cooperation makes everything easier. Grace, you, with me. Thomas and Lily stay here. She pulled a zip tie from her pocket and tossed it to Thomas. Secure yourself to the radiator. Now, Thomas complied reluctantly, looping the plastic restraint around his wrist and the old cast iron radiator along the wall. Vanessa checked it was tight before gesturing to Grace with the gun. Let's go treasure hunting. As they moved toward the bedroom, Grace heard Thomas say something quietly to Lily, though she couldn't make out the words. The bedroom was just as Grace remembered it. Rustic furniture, quilted bedspread, and the small closet where she and Lily had hidden their childhood secrets. Open it, Vanessa ordered. Grace slid open the closet door and knelt on the floor, feeling for the loose board they had discovered as children. It came up easily, revealing a small space beneath. Inside was a waterproof case about the size of a hardcover book. Is that it? Vanessa asked. Yes, Grace answered, lifting the case out. Open it. Grace unlatched the case. Inside was a flash drive, several sealed envelopes, and what appeared to be a lab notebook. Vanessa's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Excellent. Bring it with you. They returned to the main room to find Lily standing exactly where they left her, but Thomas had shifted his position slightly. His eyes fixed on the case in Grace's hands. Here's what happens now, Vanessa said, motioning for Grace to place the case on the coffee table. I am going to verify these are the real records, not some decoy, and then we all going to take a little walk in the woods. The implication hung heavy in the air. Once Vanessa had what she needed, they would be loose ends, witnesses to be eliminated. You want to get away with this, Grace said, stalling for time. Detective Reeves knows we came here. If anything happens to us, Reeves is dead, Vanessa interrupted coldly. My colleague at the hospital made sure of that after you escaped. No one is coming to save you. The news hit Grace like a physical blow. She had only known Reeves for a short time, but he had tried to protect her. And now he was dead because of it. You, lying, Thomas said suddenly. The local police confirmed he's alive. Serious condition, but alive. Vanessa's expression flickered with surprise and annoyance. You, bluffing. Am I? Thomas looked confident. Why don't you call your handler and check? Oh wait, you can't get a signal out here, can you? No cell service for miles. One of the reasons we chose this location for the meeting. Grace noticed Lily shifting her weight slightly, her hand moving slowly toward the fireplace poker leaning against the stone hearth. Vanessa seemed distracted by Thomas's claim, her focus divided. It doesn't matter, Vanessa said, regaining her composure. Once I deliver these files, I'll be long gone before anyone connects me to any of this. She knelt to examine the contents of the case, keeping the gun trained on them as she flipped through the lab notebook with her free hand. Her eyes widened as she scanned the pages. These testing protocols. They deliberately excluded certain demographic groups from the final reports, she murmured, almost to herself. And these adverse reaction statistics, they triple what was reported to the FDA. Now you understand why this can't go public, Thomas said quietly. Too many powerful people would face prison. Vanessa looked up at him, her expression hardening. And that's why they'll pay whatever it takes to recover these records. Or, came a new voice from the doorway, they'll eliminate anyone who's seen them. Everyone turned. Detective Reeves stood in the cabin's entrance, his left arm in a sling, his right hand holding a service weapon that was pointed directly at Vanessa. "Drop the gun, Winters," he ordered. For a split second, Vanessa looked like she might resist. Then, calculating her odds, she slowly placed her weapon on the floor. "You're supposed to be in the hospital," she said bitterly. "I checked myself out," Reeves replied. "Shoulder wounds are painful, but rarely fatal if treated promptly. You should know that, being in your line of work." Grace felt a rush of relief at seeing Reeves alive, but confusion quickly followed. "How did you find us?" "Your phone," Reeves explained. "I had the department ping its location after our call. Standard procedure for potential witnesses in danger." He stepped further into the cabin, keeping his gun trained on Vanessa. "Though I have to say, the family reunion here is a surprise." Thomas had worked his hand free from the zip tie. Apparently it hadn't been as secure as Vanessa thought. He moved to Lily's side protectively. "Detective," Thomas acknowledged with a nod. "I assume you hear about Project Phoenix." Among other things, Reeves confirmed. "The Major Crimes Unit has been working with the FDA's criminal investigation team for months. We knew Nexus was falsifying data, but we couldn't prove it until now." He gestured toward the case with its damning contents. Vanessa laughed bitterly. "So I led you right to the evidence." "Perfect." "Not exactly," Reeves said. We've been watching you since you started impersonating Lily Morgan. We just didn't know who hired you or why." Lily stepped forward. "I can answer that. It was Archer Pharmaceuticals, Nexus's main competitor. They wanted the evidence to force a merger under favorable terms, not to help patients or bring anyone to justice." Thomas nodded grimly. "Lily's right. I was working for Archer when I discovered what Nexus was doing with Project Phoenix. I recruited Lily to help gather evidence from the inside, but I didn't know Archer planned to use it for leverage rather than turn it over to the authorities." Grace stared at her half-brother in disbelief. "So you used Lily? Put her in danger?" "I was trying to protect her," Thomas insisted. "When I realized Archer's true intentions, I warned her to disappear with the evidence. But by then, Vanessa was already on her trail, and Nexus had figured out what we were doing." Vanessa had been watching this exchange with calculating eyes. Suddenly, she lunged toward the fireplace, grabbing the poker Lily had been reaching for earlier. In one fluid motion, she swung it at Reeves, catching him on his injured shoulder. The detective cried out in pain, his gun discharging into the ceiling as he fell backward. Vanessa seized the moment of chaos to dive for her discarded weapon. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion for Grace. She saw Thomas moving to protect Lily, saw Vanessa raising her gun toward them, saw Reeves struggling to aim his weapon despite his injury. Acting on pure instinct, Grace threw herself forward, tackling Vanessa just as she fired. The bullet went wide, splintering wood somewhere behind them. Grace and Vanessa crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs, fighting for control of the gun. Despite her injured ribs, Vanessa was surprisingly strong, leveraging her weight to flip Grace onto her back. "You should have stayed out of this," Vanessa hissed, pressing the gun toward Grace's face. A sudden blinding pain exploded in Grace's shoulder as she strained to keep the weapon away from her head. Their struggles brought them dangerously close to the fireplace, the heat from the smoldering embers intensifying as they rolled across the floorboards. Just as Vanessa gained the upper hand, a deafening crack echoed through the cabin. Vanessa's body jerked, her eyes widening in shock. The pressure on the gun eased as she slumped forward. Grace scrambled out from under her, looking up to see Lily standing with Reeves' gun in her hands, her expression a mixture of horror and determination. "Lily," Grace gasped, crawling toward her sister. The gun clattered to the floor as Lily rushed to her side. "Are you hurt? Did she shoot you?" Grace shook her head, clutching her throbbing shoulder. "I think I dislocated it during the fight." She looked over at Vanessa's still form. "Is she's alive," Thomas announced, kneeling beside Vanessa to check her pulse. The bullet went through her side. "She needs medical attention." Reeves had managed to get to his feet, though he was leaning heavily against the wall. There's a first aid kit in my car. And a satellite phone since there's no cell service. We need to call this in. As Thomas went to help Reeves, Lily pulled Grace into a careful embrace, mindful of her injured shoulder. I am so sorry, Lily whispered. I never meant for you to get involved in any of this. Grace held her sister tightly with her good arm. You should have told me what was happening. We could have faced it together. I thought I was protecting you by keeping you in the dark, Lily admitted. But all I did was put you in more danger. Thomas returned with the first aid kit and began tending to Vanessa's wound while Reeves made the call for backup and medical assistance. Grace and Lily moved to the couch, the case of evidence still sitting on the coffee table between them. So what happens now? Grace asked, looking from her sister to her half-brother. Now we tell the truth, Lily said firmly. All of it, the falsified data, the deaths in the clinical trials, the cover-up. People need to know what Nexus was willing to do for profit. Thomas nodded solemnly. And I'll testify about Archer's role in all of this. Neither company comes out of this clean. You'll face charges too, Reeves pointed out as he ended his call. Obstruction of justice, at minimum. I know, Thomas acknowledged. But some things are worth the price. He looked at his half-sisters with genuine regret in his eyes. I should have been honest with both of you from the beginning. After our parents died, I let bitterness drive a wedge between us. I thought I could make it right by protecting you from a distance, but I was wrong. Lily's expression softened slightly. You could have just been our brother, Thomas. That would have been enough. As dusk settled over the cabin, they could hear the distant sound of helicopter blades cutting through the mountain air. Help was coming. The case containing the evidence that would expose Project Phoenix sat between them. The culmination of secrets, deception, and ultimately, truth. Grace looked at her sister beside her and their half-brother across the room. Their family had been fractured for years, long before this conspiracy had entangled them. Yet somehow, in the midst of danger and betrayal, they had found their way back to each other. What will you do after this is over? Grace asked Lily quietly. Lily considered the question. I don't know. Find a new career, obviously. Maybe something with less corporate intrigue. She smiled faintly. What about you? I think, Grace said slowly, I might take some time off. Maybe stay at the cabin for a while, fix it up. It deserves better than to be just a hiding place for secrets. Thomas looked up from his work bandaging Vanessa. Room for one more? After I serve whatever time I have coming, that is. The question hung in the air. A tentative olive branch extended across years of estrangement. Grace and Lily exchanged glances, a lifetime of shared understanding passing between them. We'll see, Lily said, not closing the door completely. Outside, the helicopter was circling, preparing to land in the clearing near the cabin. Soon the peaceful mountain retreat would be swarming with federal agents, police, and medical personnel. The quiet would be broken, the secrets exposed to the light. As the sound grew louder, Grace reached over and took her sister's hand. Despite everything, the fear, the pain, the betrayal, she felt a curious sense of peace. For the first time in years, there were no secrets between them. No hidden agendas, no protective lies. Just truth, and maybe, eventually, healing. The helicopter landed, its powerful spotlight sweeping across the cabin windows, illuminating the three siblings inside. The brothers and sisters who had been separated by circumstances and choices, now united by a shared ordeal and the blood ties that had brought them back together. As federal agents began approaching the cabin, Thomas looked at his half-sisters. Whatever happens next, I want you both to know something. I never stopped thinking of you as family. Even when I stayed away. Even when I was working angles you knew nothing about. You were always my sisters. And you were always our brother, Grace replied softly. That's why it hurt so much when you left. The front door opened, flooding the room with artificial light as agents entered with weapons drawn. In those final moments before the outside world rushed in, The three siblings shared a look of understanding, a silent promise that this time, whatever came next, they would face it together. No more switches, no more secrets, just the truth, however difficult it might be. And for Grace, as she watched her sister rise to meet the incoming agents, evidence in hand, that was enough. The hospital mix-up that had started this journey had nearly cost them everything, but in the end, it had given them back something invaluable: each other. As she was helped to her feet by a paramedic, Grace took one last look around the cabin that held so many memories, both old and new. The place where, as children, they had hidden their innocent secrets, and where now, as adults, they had unearthed far darker ones. Life had come full circle, and despite everything, Grace wouldn't have traded these past harrowing days for anything. Because sometimes, it took nearly losing everything to remind you what mattered most: family, truth, and the courage to fight for both.